Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Crew Travel right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and welcome back, Lee Harris from Blue Marine Travel. How are you?
Yeah, very good in New Zealand. Yep. All surviving, which is the main thing I think at the moment, isn't it? So how about you guys?
I think, everybody that I'm in touch with, we're all sort of kicking and just hoping that we don't end up in lockdown like we were 6 months ago.
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it? Especially with Europe at the moment. That's all we sort of seem to hear and read. Unfortunately, the second wave's going to hit, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it's somehow going to be warded off anyway.
Well, I think straight across the board, they're realizing that a lockdown is just not worth the financial hardship that it creates for everybody. And, we're talking Canada, Europe, everywhere. People just can't survive that way. So that is why they're sort of implementing, I guess, masks and, social distancing and smaller crowd sizes and stuff in order to make sure that people can go about continuing at least the closest option to normal as possible.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it, for normal life? It seems a lifetime ago at the moment.
Well, the sad thing is that it's my normal life, for years now. So it's no difference for me, except for the mask. I do the social distancing as a normal thing, but the mask, that was sort of, a step in a different direction for me. But I'm okay with that because they can't see me sticking my tongue out at people as I walk by them. So
See, you're winning. You're
I
winning at
am
life.
winning. This is so working for me. It really is. So what's going on in the world of travel this week, Lee? South Africa, of course. I mean, I don't know. There's a couple of countries that keep popping back up again, but South Africa is definitely one of them. What's going on there right now?
Yeah, so it's only really the place that we can start, isn't it? It's one of our favourite talking points on this show. So the big news, obviously, coming out of the country the latter part of this week was the announcement they will be reopening for international travel as from the 1st of October. Only 3 airports will be accepting international travellers. They will be Johannesburg, Cape Town and Durban. The announcement did come with a caveat that travel will be restricted to and from countries with a high infection rate. As of the time of this show being made, the list of restricted countries has not yet been released. Obviously, once it is, we will update you all and have the list on the radio, social media. For international travellers who are allowed to enter the country as from the 1st, they will have to have a negative PCR test no more than 72 hours before departure. Where a traveller has not done a COVID-19 test prior to departure, they will be required to remain in mandatory quarantine at their own expense. All travellers on arrival will also be screened, and anyone presenting with symptoms will be required to remain in quarantine until a repeat COVID-19 test is conducted. And all travellers will be asked to install a COVID-19 Alert South Africa mobile app.
Wow, well, I see actually a lot of countries around the world are deciding that they're going to be implementing fines if people don't actually do that quarantine because people were saying, yes, yes, we're going to do the quarantine and then, jumping out and going grocery shopping and going to the beach.
Yeah, I mean, especially in countries with a high population, it must be almost impossible to police, I would imagine. If you're mandatory quarantine, for me, I don't think personally is the way to go. But then with self-isolation, it's easy for people just to slip, like you say, to nip out to the shops or to do this and to do that. And like I said, I don't see how you could police that many people who are coming into a country.
Well, I mean, I saw a news report actually just this morning, and I'm not sure which country it was because it was just really, really briefly, but they were talking about 10,000 pounds, I think. So I guess maybe it would be the England. But 10,000 pounds if you were caught breaking self-isolation.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I read that today. Yeah, it's definitely the UK. And also now, obviously, they've got the rule of 6 where you can only have up to 6 people in your bubble at a time. And people are going to get fined if they're found with more than 6 as well. So the UK are starting to crack down once more again, it seems.
See, the thing is, though, I don't really understand a lot of this because, you can go to a pub or you can go to a bar or, some of these rules are kind of just weird. You can't go to your back garden with your entire family and social distance, but you can all cram into a small spot as long as, you're paying pub rates, right?
Yeah, I know it is. The one that makes me laugh as well is where they say there's a curfew until 10 p.m. I mean, is there some study that I've missed where COVID is extremely potent after 10 p.m. and before 6 a.m. but any time after that seems to be fine?
Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe COVID needs to have a nap as well.
Yeah, I think so.
It's old in the terms of viruses now. 6 months in virus years is like, I don't know, 60, maybe. I don't know. What's happening in Australia?
Yeah, so another one of our favourites is Australia. Obviously, the Australian government this week finally announced the increase in passenger numbers that they had threatened to do the past couple of weeks. Unfortunately, the resulting announcement was a little bit of a letdown, in all honesty. The government declared that they would be raising the cap from 4,000 arrivals into Australia a week to 6,000, so only an increase of 2,000 passengers. And obviously, with more than a reported 27,000 Australians all still looking to get back into the country,
Wow.
it really is difficult to see how this latest increase is going to make the availability of flights any easier over the coming months. Um, where it's going to happen is from the 28th of September, Sydney Airport will take an extra 500 passengers per week. Brisbane will take an extra 200, as will Perth. And then from the 4th of October, Brisbane will then take an extra 300 passengers on top of the 200. And from the 12th of October, Perth will also take an extra 300 on top of the 200. And they also announced that Melbourne International Airport at this time will still remain closed to international travel.
So let me ask you, I mean, as far as those 27,000 people that are still trying to get back home after 6 months, who is paying for them to exist?
I mean, that's the question that needs to be asked. I saw an article the other day, and they were saying out of the 27,000, 5,000 were now classed as in financial hardship. And I believe, as far as I know, the Australian government were looking to obviously prioritise those 5,000. But how they go about it and how they do it, I don't know. And like you say, the other 22,000, okay, you're going to have some crew on board yachts, but they're going to be well over their contract dates now trying to get home. And the rest of the people, that's a big, big backlog that you've now got to try and clear.
Yeah, and I mean, to keep them from being home, that baffles me. I mean, most of the countries around the world, when this hit, their first priority was repatriating every single person that needed to get home, and that was their number one priority, which they did, or most countries did.
Yeah, Australia they seem to have taken a slightly different step compared to most countries with regards to getting their people home. Um, I know there are rumours that they are talking about putting repatriation flights on. Nothing concrete as yet. Hopefully, there should something come out in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully that will help these guys get back home as well. Because 27,000 people all desperately trying to get home. It's not pretty at the moment.
That should have been something that was done in the first month, not 6 months, 7 months down the road. But I'm not
Yeah,
government, so what do I know, right?
exactly right. It does seem like they're now trying to play catch up, doesn't it? And 6 months later down the line, it's very difficult to catch up.
The Ukraine.
Yeah, so last week we discussed Russia, and so the Russia increasing their international flights. The good news is this week for neighbouring Ukrainian crew is that the Ukraine International Airlines have announced the resumption of international routes on the 1st of October. As from the 1st, the international airline will be offering flights to Dubai, Istanbul, Cairo, Brussels, Dusseldorf, London, Prague, and Baku. The airline also announced that they'll be opening up travel domestically from international destinations to cities such as Lviv, Odessa, Dnipro, Kherson, and Kharkiv. One of the main reasons why Ukrainian International Airlines has returned to these cities is that the government of Ukraine has now decided to lift restrictions on foreign visitors arriving into the country at the end of this month, which also means on top of that, passengers can now pass through Kiev in transit.
So is there going to be any quarantine? Is there going to be any testing, or is it just we're opening?
At the moment, it's just their opening. There's been no confirmed publication with regards to quarantine or anything like that. So obviously, once there is anything announced, we'll be first to bring it to you.
And Rome Airport, something exciting about that?
Yeah, so Rome Airport, the Leonardo da Vinci International Airport, has become the first airport in the world to earn the COVID-19 five-star rating from Skytrax. Skytrax is an international airport industry ratings body. The rating is based on a combination of procedural efficiency checks, visual observation analysis, and ATP sampling tests. On September the 1st, the airport opened a 7,000 square foot COVID-19 testing centre, which is co-managed with the Italian Red Cross. and the airport scored points for having easy to read signage in multiple languages, strict enforcement of mask wearing, visibly present staff, and efficiency thanks to the consolidation of all incoming and outgoing flights to a single terminal for easier tracking. Skytrax has only ranked European airports so far, and they've handed out 3 stars to Malaga in Spain, Nice in France, and London's Heathrow in the United Kingdom. Just to clarify the Skytrax rating system, 5 stars indicates a very high standard of airport cleanliness and maintenance, while 4 stars is good, 3 is average, and 2 stars is the lowest possible rating, which means that the airport's anti-COVID protocols need work.
Wow. I wonder what we're going to see straight across the board as this is the testing is rolled out around the world.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? There's going to be a mixed bag, I'm sure, a big mixed bag. But congratulations to Rome. That bearing in mind that Italy were one of the hardest hit early on in Europe, they really do seem to have turned it around.
Well, it'll be interesting to see which countries actually are capable of putting together. Rome does surprise me because, the Italian people are very sort of lackadaisical and relaxed but the fact that they were the hardest hit, I assume, is because they managed to put this all together so well, is because it was such a hit for them.
Yeah, it seems to be the way, doesn't it? Yeah, they did get hit hard. But yeah, like you say, they seem to have turned it around, and especially with air travel as well. It's obviously it's a hot topic with people. Should you fly, should you not fly, and all the rest of it. And kudos to them for getting this in place and having that 5-star rating.
Well, and did we have any crew questions that actually made sense this week? You were saying off air that there was a ton of questions that came in, but none of them had anything really to do with travel at the moment.
We had some random ones, that's for sure. It made for some interesting reading. But we did receive a question from Sandra, who was wanting to know if Malaysian passport holders can enter either France or Italy as a tourist at the moment. Unfortunately, Sandra, I'm afraid Malaysian nationals cannot currently enter France as a tourist. And as for Italy, they are currently restricting passengers until the 7th of October. Obviously, please contact us again around this date and we can see if the restrictions have changed.
Nice. Well, and you've also seen a huge increase on your LinkedIn, and I'm going to do that push again if you're interested in seeing what's happening around the world on sometimes 12 or 13 times a day. Let's go over to LinkedIn and sign up or connect with Lee Harris, LeeHarris, and you will definitely be inundated with all of the changes as they happen around the world.
I need to stop paying you, Ria, honestly. My LinkedIn is increasing exponentially every day. It's brilliant.
I think you need to start paying me as well. What is this? That's all right. You know what? As long as we can help crew out there sort of get a handle on what's going on. I can't imagine, sort of working in that kind of life, a nomadic type lifestyle, and not knowing, if tomorrow you lose your job or tomorrow the boss decides that he's going to shut the yacht down and you need to get home, but you can't get home, what's happening with your visa? I mean, these questions, it's scary, and generally speaking, with a lot of the crew, we're talking about crew that are in their early 20s. So this is like the first time massively away from home. And it's not sort of the most comfortable position to be in. So, I'm glad that we're able to do this and provide this information.
Yeah, definitely. It's important. It's just like you say that a lot of the crew, they are in their early 20s. And some of them, if they're green ones who have not been out, on a yacht before, and this is one of their first times traveling. Like you say, it's a scary experience at the moment. Not just being on board and not knowing, if you can get off, when your contract ends, whether your country's open, whether it's taking people in, and like you say, on the flip side of that, how secure jobs are. Nobody's job is particularly secure at the moment, what with COVID. So, it is scary times for at the moment, and if we can give them a little bit of peace of mind, then, that's all well and good.
Well, and sometimes it's not even necessarily peace of mind, because the news out of Australia with 27,000 people still waiting to be repatriated, that isn't peace of mind, but at least you know what you're dealing with.
Exactly right. They can, maybe put a plan in place. When I say that, I don't want, I'm not trying to scare people. It is the reality of the situation at the moment. We are finding seats. It may take us a little bit longer. Normally we can turn stuff around quite quickly. Australia, it may take us a little bit longer to find flights. You may be paying a premium a little bit higher than what you normally would due to the fact that there aren't many seats. But we'll do all we possibly can to get you guys home for when you need to.
Now, before I let you go, which countries, and I know we talk about it every week, but I think it's really important to reiterate that, but which countries are making you pay for quarantine at this stage?
So at the moment, it's Australia and New Zealand. They're the two main ones. As far as I'm aware, they're the only two. South Africa, I know they were having their managed quarantine, but as far as I'm aware, people weren't having to pay for it, and they've now got also the self-isolation option. So it really does seem to be the Pacific countries at the moment. Australia and New Zealand are the two that are making people pay.
And that price is around 3,000 Australian dollars.
Yeah, so Australia, they've let states dictate what people have got to pay, but the average works out to be around about 3,100 Australian dollars. It's basically the same for New Zealand as well. It works out to be around about 3,000 New Zealand dollars. Although if you're traveling with your family, it's like a sliding scale. It's not $3,000 per person. It's 3,000 for one adult. Then it comes down, and then the children, I think they're about 500 New Zealand dollars.
So that's something that you have to be prepared for as well if you do manage to get that flight to be repatriated.
Yeah, unfortunately so. Australians, they have to wait to get home. And then when they finally do, the Australian government are making them fork out $3,000 for the privilege, which is, it doesn't seem fair, does it?
No, but you know what? I mean, like we've said before, we're not government. They have their own reasonings for doing what they do. We can't change that no matter how many times we shout and scream and yell and march.
Exactly right. They've obviously got, the protocols and everything that they need to follow. So, like you say, we're not privy to that information, but it does seem a little bit unjust, I have to say.
Well, once again, we're going to make sure that we put the email address underneath this interview so you can ask crew questions. But please, it's travel questions, not whether or not you should relocate to Antarctica, which possibly sounds like a good idea at this stage, but really, I don't think Lee knows whether or not you should relocate to Antarctica. But thank you, Lee, for taking the time to read those questions and to answer them as best you can. And if it is a time-sensitive question, I'm sure that you won't wait until the show coming in order to give the answer. You will make sure to answer that in a direct time.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, like you say, if there is anything time-sensitive, then we'll get that answer straight back to them.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Lee, for your time.
Always a pleasure.
I know. Once again, you've been listening to Lee Harris from Blue Marine Travel with all your crew travel updates. My name is Rhea. I have been your host. Tune in again next week.